Florida Gators cornerback Jason Marshall Jr. has announced that he's going to be coming back for the 2024 season in Gainesville. We're going to talk about that here on Locked On Gators.
You are Locked On Gators, your daily podcast on the Florida Gators. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello, and welcome back to another episode of Locked On Gators, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Thanks for making Locked On Gators your first listen of the day. We are available daily and free wherever you listen to the podcast. Happy Thursday. I'm Brandon Olson. Find me on Twitter at WNS_Brandon. Find all my written work with Whole Nine Sports, Giants Country, NFL 33. Today's episode of Locked On Gators is brought to you by Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code Locked On for $20 off your first purchase. And yesterday, early evening, Jason Marshall Jr. Posted up on Instagram that he's coming back, that he's going to be returning to Florida for the 2024 season. And I'm not surprised by it. I think it's a decent choice for him because I think that the best choices for Jason Marshall Jr. were to return to Gainesville or go somewhere else before going to the NFL. What Princely Umanmielen did is what I thought Jason Marshall Jr. should do. Either transfer to a place that you think will develop you and get you ready for the next level, or come back. Because, I know that it was a bit of an odd situation with Jason Marshall Jr. because I thought that he might be leaving just because he was the I guess, I don't want to say scapegoat because it was kind of deserved, but like him and Princely were the two main guys where Florida Gators fans on Twitter were going at those two. And so I thought Jason Marshall would be leaving because it just felt like one of those times where maybe the relationship is a little bit burnt there. But he still has the raw physical traits. My issue is that he hasn't really improved as we've gone on. I almost just took out my desk. He hasn't really improved as time's gone on. He's had some flashes, but as far as the expectation for Jason Marshall Jr. is a 5-star cornerback that, every year we go into the offseason of this is the year for Jason Marshall. This is the year for Jason Marshall. And we spoke about it with multiple guests before the season last year, and pretty much everybody was just like, this is the time that Jason Marshall is going to break out. This is the defense, and every year that's changed. And every year he's played in different defensive systems and hasn't really been good in any of them. I do think that his best that his skill set is best suited for a defensive awesome to play more press man, which, hey, if just basing on what we've talked about with the portal and any changes that we've talked about on the staff, I think Florida wants to play more press man. So maybe that's a good idea for Jason Marshall, or at least that's a good situation for Jason Marshall. Maybe that played a part in his decision to return. I'm hoping that Will Harris can help him become a bit more aggressive in all phases. I feel like, and this is where I kind of am firmly out on what Corey Raymond was doing with the Florida Gators secondary. The cornerbacks in Gainesville were so impressively horrendous at turning their head and making a play on the ball. And I get it. It's way easier said than done, especially with the equipment and everything. Yeah. Easier said than done to go, get your head around. Here's the thing. You're an SEC cornerback, starting SEC cornerback with NFL aspirations. I think it's fair to say, hey, maybe turn your head around a little bit. Just a thought. Just putting a feeler out there. Maybe get your head turned around. I personally would not hate seeing Jason Marshall Jr. play the star role that we saw Jaden Hill play. I mean, look, 2022, I was pretty tough on Jaden Hill's film. Didn't like it. Didn't think it was good. Didn't think he was doing well at outside corner. And when he was moving to star, I had my hesitation, and I was very open about it. Where his physical skill set with that knee that was clearly holding him back, if he wasn't full go, he was going to struggle, and it was going to be really rough for him. Jason Marshall Jr. doesn't have that health concern. He is a pretty decent athlete, but also Florida later in the year, not even later in the year, just sometimes they would get into it of using Jason Marshall to kind of blitz basically from the cornerback spot. If you want to blitz him more frequently, you play him at star, where nickel is just a not a normal part of your pass rush plan, but it's part of your pass rush plan more than corner is. So you could play him there. You could play him in the nickel. And playing nickel is not one of those things where it's like NFL teams aren't going to like that. Because every NFL team, their base defense is nickel. It's not 10 or 15 years ago where you go, oh, yeah, like, do I care about drafting a guy early if he's just going to play 30% of snaps in nickel? Now you're playing 90% of your snaps out of nickel. So it's still a thing. But I think Jason Marshall is someone that can play it well, because I do think that he's going to be able to match up with most slot receivers down there. I think he can get a little physical with them if he wants to. But I don't know if that's even in consideration for him. I would imagine it's not. I would like to see him do it, but I'd imagine it's not in consideration for him, just because, simply put, bit of an ego thing would be my guess. Not that he has an ego, as in a cornerback. A lot of cornerbacks will go, I don't want to play this slot. I want to stay outside. I'm an island corner kind of thing. And so if you're a guy who started for a couple years on the outside and you're coming back and you're probably going to start again there, I see not wanting to move in. I think that would be a move that would benefit him. Not sure if it's a move that Florida's really interested in making for him. But hey, I've been wrong about corner. I've been right about some spots too, but I've been wrong before. But I think that he'd be best suited to star again, although I don't think that's going to happen. But I think that's the best spot for him. We're going to talk about what the rest of this cornerback room might look like for the rest of the show, really. Before we do that, though, a quick word from Game Time. Today's episode of Locked On Gators is brought to you by Game Time. And now bowl season's wrapped up, unfortunately, but you got NFL playoffs are on their way, which, look, you can't pencil in plans for a playoff game until it happens, and that you're short-term planning, right? Luckily for you, Game Time is the place for last-minute ticket deals. The Game Time guarantee means you'll always get the best price. If you find tickets in the same section and row for less, guess what? Game Time will credit you 110% of the difference. Snag tickets without the stress with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off your first purchase. Terms to apply. That's code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 with Game Time. So download Game Time today. Last minute tickets, lowest prices, guaranteed. Thanks again for making Locked On Gators your first listen of the day. Every day we are available daily and free wherever you listen to podcasts and on YouTube. Looking at the rest of this cornerback room for Florida, Jason Marshall is the only returning starter here. And I'm including star, the nickel spot here, because I mentioned it last segment. But even if you don't want to include it, still the only guy. Because Jason Marshall returned. Jalen Kimber committed to Louisville and then is visiting Texas A&M now. Just like a weird situation. Jaden Hill visiting Texas A&M now. which is a weird situation. But they're both gone from the cornerback room. So Jason Marshall's the only returning starter. Now you have to figure out not just opposite him. Again, I think that he could play star. I think that'd be a solid choice. I don't think it happens. So we'll pencil him in as the outside corner. Then you look at the opposite side of him, but you also look at who's going to rotate with him for one, because they rotate corners. That's just the thing that they do. And that's the thing that everyone does. That's not some Florida specific thing, but they're rotating corners. And you need to have someone that can play opposite him and the depth part opposite him as well. For me, I desperately, desperately, desperately need Devin Moore to find a way to stay healthy. I'm hoping that Craig Fitzgerald coming in can kind of help him out there. Maybe, again, I don't even know how you can, because one of the injuries was concussion. Your strength and conditioning staff isn't going to fix that. But I mean, we need something for Devin Moore to stay healthy. Just, it's been 2 years now of him in Gainesville, and he hasn't been healthy for either of them. And like the frustrating part is that we've never seen him be a legitimate starter. And by that, I mean, yeah, oh, he was out there for the first rotation. He was there after Jalen Kimber got benched against, was it Arkansas, I think, with the big play. I mean, we've never seen Devin Moore just go, all right, line it up on the starting corner this week, next week, the week after that. We've never seen him start multiple games in a row. We've never seen him go through the process of becoming a starter, where it's not just, oh, you play more snaps. It's how do you bounce back? Because when you play more snaps, yes, you have more opportunities to make a big play. You also have more opportunities to get screwed up, get burned, whatever it is. We've never seen him be able to go through those levels of starting. So, yeah, he's been good when healthy, but that's been just so far and few between where we see him play consistently. Again, whether it's a hamstring, whether it's the shoulder he had, whether it's the concussion that he got, there's just been so many things that pile up. And I get it. He's a great corner. Like he looks good on film when he plays. But the best ability is availability. And he's just not there. He's just not available. So you got to try to figure out something to keep him healthy. I don't know if it's give him the old 32-year-old NFL DB treatment of like, yeah, you don't practice on Wednesdays. You were just keeping you healthy. I don't know what it is. But Devin Moore, like his health has never been more important for the Florida Gators, because the rest of this room, a lot of projection. And like I've said before, like we can project Jakeem Jackson to take a step. We could project Jordan Castell at safety to take that next step. We could project Bryce Thornton at safety to take that next step. You could project everybody to take a step everywhere. But at a certain point, when you talk about so much projection, logic tells you not everybody's going to meet expectations. And so we're looking at a lot of projection at the rest of the room. And logic tells me not everybody is going to meet expectations. Like Jakeem Jackson, for me, is someone that I feel comfortable saying he will take the next step, but not just me blindly going, oh, I just know he's going to be good. No, I think Jakeem Jackson, or I say Jakeem Jackson will take the next step, because he's someone who is still learning how to play corner. And I don't mean it in the sense of like, yeah, he's a college kid. Even when you're young in the NFL, you're still learning how to play corner. I mean, Jakeem Jackson's been playing corner for what, 2 years now? He's just learning like the basics still of playing corner. You don't learn that in a year or two. Like that's something that you have to go through. And so Jakeem Jackson is someone that I do think will take the next step, which I think that even if he's not starter, he's going to be a key rotational piece. I think he's got fantastic athleticism, great length, and he's aggressive on the ball, which thank you for finally grabbing a guy that can do that. I do think Jakeem Jackson is the guy. When we talk about that 2023 recruiting class and we look at the second, or we look at the cornerback room at least, Jakeem Jackson's like the guy that we continue to talk about. Deshaun Johnson is also in there. I'm curious to see kind of what he has in his bag at corner. Because we saw, I think, like 22 defensive snaps from him. He played more special teams. We saw, I think, like 22 defensive snaps from him last year. Not much to evaluate anything off of, really, but also another one with great size and good athleticism. But where Deshaun Johnson differs a lot is his versatility, because he's someone that when he was getting recruited, we were like, oh, is he going to play corner? Is he going to play safety? Is he going to move to star? What is he going to do? Maybe he's the guy that we talk about. Maybe it's Jason Marshall outside, Devin Moore outside, or Jakeem Jackson outside. But Deshaun Johnson playing star, Sharif Denson, whatever it may be. Maybe Deshaun Johnson has a role there as just a guy who moves around a lot. Believe me, there's snaps for someone like that. So maybe it's Deshaun Johnson. But again, Florida's done a very good job of bringing in guys who have the raw physical traits and the raw physical tools to find success at cornerback. They've just done an absolute piss poor job at developing those guys. That's where Florida really falters. I get it. In 2024, you didn't really corner wasn't a thing that you really added to. I don't think Florida gets Zay Mincy, just for the record. However, the 2023 class, even 2022, you had talent come in. You just haven't developed it worth a damn. So it's been the development there. Recruiting's been good. Development sucks. You also have to think about if you have, like, do we finally see someone or do we finally see something from Ethan Pouncey at corner? I feel like this is 2 cycles in a row where we've been like, oh, think he's about to portal out. But that is not the case with Ethan Pouncey. He's still a Gator. Will we finally see him crack the rotation? And this is another thing where history tells me a guy that hasn't cracked the rotation multiple years in a row is not suddenly about to crack the rotation. However, this is not a normal year in the sense where you've got a lot of faces out, a lot of faces in, and now it's who's going to take that next step, because we really don't know who it's going to be at all. And then we do have even more faces coming in to that cornerback room, which we'll talk about in a second. But first, we got to get a quick word from FanDuel. Today's episode of Locked On Gators is brought to you by FanDuel Sportsbook. The NFL regular season is wrapping up. This is the final week, but there's still time to get in on the action with FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. And right now, new customers get $150 in bonus bets guaranteed when you make a $5 bet. That's right. When you make a $5 bet, don't have to cash it. Don't have to do that anymore. All right? It's awesome. That's $150 in bonus bets, whether you win or lose. And the app is so easy to use. There's a billion things that you can bet on. I love it. Visit FanDuel.com/lockedon and make your first bet a layup. And remember that FanDuel is an official partner of the NFL. Thanks for making Locked On Gators your first listen of the day. Every day we are available daily and free wherever you listen to podcasts. And like I mentioned, Florida's going to have new faces in the cornerback room for the 2024 season. The only one from high school is Teddy Foster from Sarasota Cardinal Mooney. Only 2024 cornerback signee. In the secondary, you also have Gregory Smith at safety and Josiah Davis at safety. I would be like jaw on the floor stunned if Teddy Foster in 2024 was ready to contribute. That's not a knock on him or his talent. It's very similar to the situation that I just talked about with Jakeem Jackson in the last segment, where I was like, hey, corner is not something that you learn like that. Teddy Foster, Jakeem Jackson, when he was in high school, played receiver and then started playing corner and moved forward with corner. Teddy Foster didn't play football and then started playing corner. So he's starting even a step further back from Jakeem Jackson. Not to say that Teddy Foster won't be good or that we have to wait till 2027 or anything like that. But 2024 for me is an unrealistic expectation for him. And I like his film. I genuinely like what Teddy Foster puts on film, especially when you put into context that he's just starting to play corner. Like if you just go put him up against just the national corners, I'm like, okay, he's got good size, good length, good athleticism. He's physical at the point of attack, the press. I'm looking at it and I'm like, okay, he's got physical tools that I'm looking for in a corner. And he's just learning how to play the position. That's where we talk about, okay, if Will Harris is really about what Will Harris is advertised to be about, Teddy Foster is going to be really freaking good because he's got all the physical tools. You just got to get him right up here. And I mean, if you're listening and not watching, I'm pointing to my brain. So for Teddy Foster, you just got to put it all together. However, we can also talk about, I mean, the guys that Florida's brought in for portal visits so far. You've landed a commitment from Trick Bridges, who played cornerback at Oregon. However, he's coming to Florida to play safety, maybe play some star, but he's not going to be a boundary corner for the Florida Gators, and he should not be a boundary corner for the Florida Gators. Then you look at the other guys that are being brought in for visits. You got Tulane's DJ Douglas. You got former UCLA Bruin, current USC commit John Humphrey, and UTSA corner Cam Alexander. And we talked about most of these guys yesterday or the day before, but for me, I think that goes to just show, like, Florida's not just looking at these guys and going, yeah, we want one of you. Like, they're not bringing in 3 guys for visits at the same time to go, yeah, we want one of you here. They want to bring in multiple players that can contribute here. Because really, that's what you need. Like we talked about Florida. In the secondary, you lost Jalen Kimber and Jaden Hill. You lost your second and third most experienced starters in the secondary. For what was already a very, very young secondary, in 2024, they're going to be even younger. So this is not just, oh, we need bodies. This is, we need experience that can help these younger corners get ready, that can help these younger corners learn. And when you add to this cornerback room, you're also improving your wide receivers, because in practice, that's who they're going to go against. They're going to constantly go against these new corners that you're bringing in. Personally, I think that if you look at how some of these guys come in, then you can kind of, or if you just even look at who they're bringing in, you kind of know what they're looking to do. Like John Humphrey from UCLA is the one that I talked about on yesterday's show. I was like, hey, John Humphrey from UCLA is an indicator to me that Florida wants to play more press man coverage, because UCLA did a lot of that this past year. And so that's what Florida's looking at. Florida looked at him play this year, play a lot of press man coverage. And they're like, all right, that's what I want in my room. Like, that's what we want to do. We want to be able to play like that in the cornerback room for Florida. So I think for me, whoever you're bringing in, the important part here is that Florida knows they need help in the cornerback room. They need depth, they need experience, and they need even just starter level talent. So Florida needs to improve this cornerback room. They're working to improve this cornerback room. It's got a ton of promise, but promises don't mean jack diddly on the football field, right? I think we all know that, based on however old you are, however long you've been a Florida fan. I think you know promises don't mean jack diddly on a football field. Thanks for making Locked On Gators your first listen of the day. Every day we are available daily and free by visiting the podcast. We'll be back tomorrow, maybe later today, if there's some news that we might be anticipating. Who's to say? For Locked On Gators, I'm Brandon Olson. Don't forget to follow me on Twitter at WNS_Brandon. Find all my written work with Whole Nine Sports, Giants Country, NFL 33, and I'll see you all next time.